Are you ready to get your button pushed? You're tuned in to What's the Reason for This, the podcast where music meets madness, friends become family, and every conversation finds its own groove. Kick back, laugh loud, and let's find the reason together. The button has been pushed. Hello and welcome. What's up, guys? Coming back to you from the dungeon. Shay is not able to be here again. To be perfectly honest, I'm kind of happy he isn't, because we all know he hates the Grateful Dead and he has poor taste in music other than Billy Strings. He's a decent human being, but now I get to be selfish and I have an amazing guest this week, and it is everything that I want to chat about that I know nothing about. His name is Jay Fairs. He runs a popular Instagram account that you may know called Jerry Tone Store. Jay, what's going on, bud?
Hey, Kodi, how you doing?
Man, I am stoked. I'm glad that we got through the hurdles of our technological challenges, which seems to happen all the time in this day and age, right?
I think it's a determination test to see if you're actually bold enough to go through with it.
Well, listen, when you were typing in all caps, I knew you weren't fucking around.
Oh,
so
dude, we
I
were
was like,
yeah, as I said, we were having the same exact reactions when the room almost worked and throw our hands up in frustration. But
no,
here
man,
we are.
it just is what it is, right? And then we've all been on like work calls or FaceTimes or whatever where the connection just doesn't work. And sadly, for this, if it doesn't work, then we just usually have to reschedule. But we did not, and we are here. We're locked in. You have this beautiful backdrop behind you.
I didn't
It's like a
expect
mini wall of
to.
sound going on with all this stuff. Who would have thought that a guitar influencer would have a room full of stuff?
Dude, it's my collection addictions, I guess, are I don't want to say completely out of hand, because I do try to keep myself within a somewhat manageable range. But yeah, I was sitting here walking this room last night going, gosh, I wish I played these amps out more. But 145 pounds of cabinet is not really one that you get to bring out very much.
Yeah, you're just not wheeling that thing around.
Dude,
But
it's
do you
hard.
get to do you rage in the studio with it?
I rage in the studio, man. The Jerry stuff, it's so funny because obviously that's like it's the biggest aspect of my electric guitar journey.
Yeah,
Um,
like takes over, right? I mean,
I
but
mean,
you did build that identity, but that's not where it came from, right?
I mean, my background in Tennessee and growing up playing bluegrass as sort of the default communal music, and albeit as a slightly reluctant child, I think I wanted to play electric guitar, and it was like, well, if you're gonna play music with others, you're gonna play bluegrass. And so when I moved to North Carolina for school and then came up to Massachusetts, and it's been this falling back in love with it, with bluegrass music, but also with the whole electric journey. It's sort of all the things in the right place now. It feels like I'm able to connect with home, but not be totally overwhelmed by that being the only music that you can
Well, and
play.
I'm on so many instances, I feel like people can attach to that, right? Because I talk to so many people that grew up in bluegrass
Yeah,
that like absolutely hated it. They're like, I didn't want to do this. This
yeah.
wasn't what I wanted, right? But then you like get into rock and you love it. But then something about those connections that bring you back. And now it's like full circle of going to everything. And I mean, we're here because of the man and the legend, Jerry Garcia, and did the exact same thing,
He
right?
was
He
doing
came,
it. He just didn't. Those words and terms maybe weren't there yet with the jam grass and stuff. But I mean, I think they were doing that the whole time, it seems.
for sure. So when you got in, you started picking up bluegrass. Were you playing acoustic guitar then?
Yeah, so acoustic, I guess, was I describe myself increasingly more frequently over the years as like a reluctant acoustic guitar player as a kid. My dad he had a brief love affair with electric for like a year in the 80s. So he had one electric guitar around the house, but a few
He
acoustic.
listened to like a Prince album or something?
No, he was a taper back, so it would have been.
Oh, it was the Dead. So
Oh,
he
dude, I look back at his guitar, and while it's not a Jerry or a Bobby guitar, I think aesthetically he was undoubtedly influenced by Bobby's like modulus looking guitars at the time. And he's like, I don't know what I was doing at that time. He liked acoustic, so I was growing up around the house jamming with my dad, playing like the band songs, and trying to think like Desperados, Waiting on a Train. What else we do? I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind and the only one I can think of right now. But
yeah, but
you know,
that's so cool. How old were you when that started with your dad?
I started playing, like taking lessons and playing with him at age 7. And that kind of, I would learn, he not a teacher at all. His mom was a music teacher, but he just played for fun his whole life. And just,
But that's generations
it's,
of
yeah, beautiful.
musicians.
So I had some musical, and my grandmother was absolutely not, I think my dad probably, his music taste to some degree might have been based off of what she didn't play. I don't know. I think I asked him that the other month and he was like, I don't quite know how to answer that. But she was rather reading off paper and not any interest in improvisation, but it clear that bug bit my dad. And so as a kid, I grew up learning to revere improvisational music as the highest tier. Folks like David Bromberg was my dad's first album that he bought, which is cool. You know, he's not, I wouldn't say just improv, but he embodies that sort of spirit of like,
he stretches things out.
Right. Yeah. He stretches. Yeah. The looseness. I think there's a looseness that my dad worked hard to achieve in his life. I think having come from a bit of a more like by the books family. And so he worked hard to achieve that. And I worked to defend that of keeping freedom and embracing the chaos of life.
That's so cool. And it's like, it's natural for us to want to push back, right? And just so like, oh no, you need to stay within these barriers. Oh no, you need to play bluegrass. But if your dad was a head and a taper, then like
he had already done the work for me in that regard. So I feel like it's my obligation to like continue that sort of path and see where you can take it if you don't grow up with that sort of limitation on your.
So were you in North Carolina all the way through high school?
I was in mostly East Tennessee for it's all good. And North Carolina was college, and I in there was played in a wedding band is essentially like a, hey, I can really cut my teeth being a gigging musician for a while, pay my rent. And I was working at a music store, and it was a delightful time, but sort of like, I think there's maybe different musical opportunities or there's something else out there, and fell in love at that time with my now fiance, and moved up to Massachusetts. And that's sort of
what brought you to the Northeast?
Love and music are the two things that I summarize.
She's
from
there?
From up this way. She went to school down in North Carolina, and I was doing like I graduated on time, but I was doing a pseudo 5th year victory lap where I moved like a mile away from campus and just continued to play in the local wedding band. And
that's awesome.
It was fun. I asked my parents, I was like, hey, Mom, Dad, it's okay if I just play in a wedding band for a while, right? They're like, yeah, that's all right. But it really, really interesting time of life because it was very essentially like very cheap rent, so I was able to spend a lot of the funds on music gear at the time and stuff, but useful stuff, and it felt like things that it wasn't like just pissing it away on something I can't get my money back on. I was able to try something out, essentially rent an amplifier for free if I sold it to the right people later, and then I had a spreadsheet, Kodi, of every single gig that I played, and on a scale of 0 to 10 how much I liked my tone that night, and I was able to cross-reference that rating with the gear that I used on each show, and I'd made graphs for myself to actually tell me which amp I liked, which speaker I liked, which guitar I liked the most. And so it was like very, very nerdy.
And Jay, this is exactly why I wanted you on, because I wanted to fucking nerd out about this. And for me, like, as a music fan that knows nothing about gear or what's going on, but also being like a psychopath, like I used to love building spreadsheets, right? And I was a lead sales manager, and I used to score leads based on different categories.
And you gotta weight stuff and
baby. I had colors for a heat map, and then I had scores based on categories, and then 4 subcategories in all those things. So you already brought up the T word, which is tone, right?
Yes.
And for us as musicians, like for us as fans of music
lovers,
as fans of music, you hear a tone and you're like, I like that, right? Yes. I like the way that this sounds. For a musician, it now becomes the mad scientist that you were of, how the fuck do I find this tone? Yeah. So let's break this down. Let's break down. Dude. Yes. No, dude, this is what the people want.
As you can see, it only gets worse. You start with 1 and then
But so like foundational gear, right? Because as you're coming out, you're playing in the wedding band. You're not trying to go big shows, right? So like,
No, dude.
because this will also help other musicians, right? And
Yeah.
people that are learning. So what were you looking at for foundational gear? And then we'll kind of expand and go from there.
Gosh, this is so exciting, man. And I drank a lot of caffeine today, so just forgive me in advance.
That's okay.
One note I'd like to point out before I get down this massive rabbit hole is that I happen to be cursed with ears that don't give me the option to not think about this. Does that make a lot of double negatives there? But I have to think about this if I want to play improvisational music, because sadly, the one thing that takes me out of the moment on stage is the sound of the instrument not being represented how I need it to
What
be.
you want it to be.
And I'm so unbelievably particular about that. I didn't know that I'm unbelievably particular about that until I've kind of had these experiences where I'm like, oh fuck, this bothers me, this bothers me, this bothers me.
So mom took a lot of Tylenol when she was pregnant.
I can't imagine. I'd love to see what I've been thinking about how to make that meme correctly.
Yes, 1,000%.
Yeah, this is a perfect advertisement for Tylenol or no Tylenol while pregnant, depending on what kind of kid you want to have.
But the joke is there.
Oh, it's there, dude.
So yes, to the rabbit hole.
So anyway, to the rabbit hole, I happen to be bothered by this, which is why I've spent so much time worrying about it. And I would encourage others, if you're not cursed by this need to have sounds that are like quote unquote perfect to your ears, don't worry about it. Just like as long as your stuff works, you're gonna do better if you just worry about playing your instrument.
And I can promise you as a fan, we don't know any fucking difference. We know no difference.
Well, that's the thing too, is I'm worried about a league of things at this point in my life where I know that I'm the only person that gives a fuck about it, and it's okay. And I've accepted that, but there might be 4 other guitar nerds out there, and those 4 people do hear the difference, and they'll tell me. And I really I do it for myself and for the 4 or 5 people that like really, really care. But there's so much to be learned about in the whole world. The thing that I found surprising about, I need to really start way earlier, but the thing about Jerry's tone that surprised me when I really started to research what was going on with it is that he sort of had this philosophy to his approach to guitar tone, or approach to electric guitar. And you can, obviously there's so much musically to be studied, but let's throw that all out the window and just take the fact that he was an improvisational artist. He liked things to be consistent and reliable when he would recall the settings. Like if he heard a sound and you're trying to dance over this moment in music, and you kind of want your dance to look or feel a particular way. And so a lot of that, to my ears, is said with like the sound of the electric guitar. And there's all these little micro changes that he was able to do. And you look back at these videos, and Jerry was a nerd too. Like he may not have had I don't think you look back at him talking about capacitors so much, but he was pretty nerdy with like down to the electronic components. He knew what was going on. He knew how his signal flowed, which is a huge part of, like, this is where I would encourage all musicians who are interested in gear, but they're like, it seems like a big techie world. I would just learn about signal flow. Like if you're an acoustic guitar player, your signal flow is pretty easy. You have your fingers here, both hands. You have a guitar pick oftentimes. You have the strings. You have that actual the contact hitting the strings. Then you have the strings. You have the vibrations inside the guitar body. Then you have essentially air, sound pressure. And then you have your eardrums. There's like that many stages from you striking a string to your eardrum vibrating with the sympathetic vibrations of that guitar. Electric, it's got a lot going on if you take the time to pencil it out. So think of sound. I can't help but think of sound as like blocks from the beginning to end. And the end is always my eardrum, and the beginning is always the person's hands. So you have on an electric guitar, I'm caffeinated, so let me just rip real quick. We got your hands, you have your pick, you have the strings. The strings, acoustic energy, mechanical energy is transformed into electrical energy via a magnetic and a coil of wire around it. A magnet and coil of wire, your pickups. The pickups will change the sound. Those go into a volume potentiometer. That changes the sound. There's a tone potentiometer that changes the sound. There's then your output to your amplifier. You may have effects pedals at play. There's so much stuff. And so then imagine like all of the variables across all those different things you're dealing with as like if you're a gigging bar musician, you might be dealing with out knowing it, you might be dealing with 1,000 different variables in your rig in a night and all the different positions and stuff. It's not quite that complicated. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You can also look at it as, hey, I have a guitar, a chord, and an amp. And like I'm going to go make music. But there's so much happening there. So I was naturally, as a kid, I took all my toys apart, and my parents were awesome because they let me do it and they let me learn that lesson. And I'd take a toy apart that I couldn't put back together and I'd cry. But it was also like I wasn't angry that they let me take the toy apart. I was angry at myself because I couldn't put it back together. So I've always had this interest in like, okay, what's going on under the surface?
You want to reverse engineer everything.
I love
so
it.
You can so that you can better understand it. So you see the final product.
Yes.
Now you're going, let me cut this up to figure out what goes into putting it all back together.
And it is to my detriment because the downside is it sometimes you have to learn. I have to learn the magic behind the trick, kind of. But it's also what you find is that no matter how deep you go, there are elements that are magic still. There's no trick. So I find that I've gotten really, really, really deep with amplifiers in a way that I'm doing stuff that's beyond my own understanding. Like I'm not an electrical engineer. I've just sort of brute forced my way through this stuff. And
yeah, but you're in the middle of the fire, so you're feeling
I'm
it,
feeling
but you're
it
also
all.
learning.
And so I'm learning from just sheer repetition and making the same mistakes over and over again. And then
so is it all self-taught, Jay? Or is there like someone that you can reach out to that you do know is an electrical engineer and be like, okay, I'm fucking dealing with this. This is what's happening within this amp or whatever. Not that I know anything. I just turned it on and amp goes loud. Yes.
So yeah, I think I have developed, like I have pretty good diagnostic skills at this point where I don't have to do so much of a daily reach out with questions, but I have to give a shout out to I guess I could call him my mentor, but he's my real good buddy, Mike Waldotronics. And
where's Waldo?
Waldo is located in Valparaiso. Dude, if you want to have a podcast, man, I mean, I'm sitting here nerding out with you, but he will out nerd me by a degree of 10 or 100. This man, let me just
Jedi versus Padawan.
Well, let me give you just the Jedi Master, Mr. Waldotronics, quick story real quick, and I'm going to get some dates wrong, and I've apologies for that. But Waldo he's probably, I think he's in his mid 40s now, I want to say, and he was a Marine in the late 90s and was, I think, getting out of the military, real sad that he didn't get to experience the dead as much as he would have liked. And he was at the age, he was a radio operator in the Marines. So he's got the electronics background from learning in the Marines. He gets out and begins sort of emailing and getting the contact info for these old roadies for the Grateful Dead that were working on all of Jerry's gear. And he starts emailing back and forth, and persistent he has been, because a lot of these guys didn't want to really give this information up. They, I think, wanted it to die with them or go to the grave with the band and with the tech guys.
So these are like the techs and the stagehands.
The tech stagehands, the roadie, the greater Grateful Dead roadie crew is a good way to sort of encapsulate the folks that he got a lot of this information from.
People that were hands-on in there.
Primary sources, man. I mean, other than Jerry himself, which Jerry's, as much as he knew about his rig, I don't think he, again, was knowing like the exact values of things. So Waldo's talking to the guys who knew the exact values of stuff. And I think a lot of them, it's a process. Like he had to display his very clear intention. And like me, he was cursed in a fun sense of the word with like, we can't not hear it. We both heard Jerry's guitar tone at a young age. For me, it was my dad was a taper in the 80s. And so I was hearing that stuff very early on. And it's like my earliest memory is being scared during Victim or the Crime, but loving the feeling and being like, wow, music can really make you feel a wide range of emotions. That's, as it's evolved, that's sort of the first thing that I can remember. So sound is really cool and meaningful to us. And Waldo has been my mentor. We probably texted every day for 6 or so years, just back and forth on like, hey, I'm
How did
chasing
you meet each other?
online. So through a mutual friend, and in the band I was playing in at the time, he saw a video that he liked, and I think he heard my guitar tone and was like, oh, I like this guy. But Waldo's been cool because he was kind of he would do mods to amplifiers, but only if sort of you were in the circle or in the club. And so I was like the whole time like, Waldo, how do I get in the club? This is awesome. You found the sound. And he found me, and he finally got me a modded amp. And then since then it's just been full addiction to amplifiers and electric circuits. It's so much fun.
That's amazing. And I want to double back because I want to talk about the startup gear, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure by the time you met Waldo and you're getting to these modified amps, you've gone through so many different
There's a lot,
levels, right?
yes.
So when you're first getting in, you said at the most basic sense, it's like guitar, cable, amp.
That's what you
Right?
want. And so the thing that in Jerry Tone land, since that's the context most folks want to know, a Strat is a really good, everybody knows the Stratocaster, the electric guitar, pretty easy thing to find. And you can find them across the board price range wise too. So, you know, if you like American guitars, you can get one of those. If you like a Squier guitar, you can get one of those. And they're all going to sound within, you know, the same sort of range.
Now, for a simpleton like me, and
Yeah.
obviously I know that you can go from hundreds of dollars to multiple thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
What makes the difference? I always hear about like the hardwoods or what's going on. What
Yeah.
is it that changes the tone from like a $500 Strat to a $55,000 Strat or what plus, right?
Such a good question. I love this question. My friend Anthony Kasha, who made the mini wall, and I have gone back and forth on this and what we think the price at which you begin paying for the art only.
Okay.
Truly, because there's a certain...
No, yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask you as an audiophile, because
Yeah.
realistically, is it because like this was cut from the same wood that Gator was, right? Like,
So you can't... There's a premium there. There's a premium to be charged and to be paid. I really I'm sitting here thinking about how much of a fire I want to light amongst the tonewood purists. That's a thing in the guitar community. There are camps, and so different people sort of have different opinions about things that may or may not be fact. Who knows? It may be subjective to some people. I can hear things that I don't think others can, but I also am not bothered by some things that others are bothered by. So it does seem increasingly more subjective the more I hear people's opinions on it. But
welcome to society in 2025.
yeah, exactly. My opinion is that primarily for most people, the only thing that's really going to matter sound-wise in an electric guitar are the electronics. That's, for my picky ears, that's where they've landed. To say that the construction of the guitar doesn't make a difference would be insane. The construction is huge. There's different kinds of guitars with the way the neck joins to the body. So here's a bolt-on. All your Stratocasters are going to be, it's a separate piece, and it slots in there, and you screw a plate into the back. This is one that Anthony Kasha made. It's got a set neck. So this is, at one point, was a separate piece, but he put it in there, and with glue and clamps, he firmly glued it. This is regarded as having better sustain because the vibrations from the neck and the vibrations from the body, they're the same. Now, I got to play a Bill Asher. I don't know if you know Bill's name, but Asher's been doing a cool Doug Irwin approved series of recreations of Wolf. And and I got to play one of those. And to say that that's a further one layer further of guitar construction more than a set neck. It's a neck through. So the entire guitar is made from the same piece of wood.
So it's all cut on one piece.
All cut on one piece. That was the first time I was sat down and I was like, oh, I think I believe a little more in tone woods in that regard, because the construction of it, my friend Jason had a great way of putting it. He goes, it's down to the DNA of how Doug Irwin constructed that guitar. And it's like this guitar just, it vibrates with you. Like, as I've played so many guitars and I've modded so many guitars, and I played this thing with the neck through and all the right electronics through the jerry rig, and it had this extra like depth to the sound that just makes me tingle inside, man. It's the coolest feeling.
That's so wild, and it's simply because it was all out of one piece.
One piece.
So there's nothing coming through it. It doesn't have to go through bolts.
There's
it doesn't have to pass through.
Think about it. It's like if you have a ball bearing, anything. Paul Reed Smith is a maker of guitars. He makes Billy's electric guitar, I think, that he plays PRS. And he had a great analogy somehow, but it's like every time you add friction or a node for vibrations to transfer, they're going to get lost or dissipated.
It's taking away from that sound.
So
and that
the
tone.
more pure vibration in theory. So that's where that philosophy comes from, where people say, well, I want a mahogany body on this guitar. I want a maple body. I think it's silly to claim to hear at least for me, to claim to hear the difference between the bodies on a guitar. I do think maybe I can acoustically hear some of the difference on a fretboard material. So like a rosewood fretboard versus a maple, I tend to prefer maple because I think it's snappier, but that could just be biased, you know?
We need some other nerd to literally like set it up so that you can hear
an
the
AB.
decibels and yes.
Yeah, and I've thought about doing these AB tests before, but it's a lot of time and energy to spend on something that so few people care about.
Actually care about.
And the problem is too, you're always going to fuck up some of the science inevitably, because
and
you
then
can't
all of a
perfectly,
sudden nothing's gonna...
comments. It's like, dude, you compared it, but you didn't even. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I tried to do a science experiment. Like, good point, but it's also for fun. So
wait, before you go too far, what about the difference? Because there's so many people that go back and buy guitars from the
vintage.
Civil War. So like, what's the difference with some of that and some of this new stuff? Just so that we can start to learn, like, as people that are coming up or want to expand our knowledge on guitars and tone, like, how does that play in?
So vintage guitar culture is its own world, and it's a beautiful world I have run parallel with here and there. Like, I have buddies who are vintage guitar nerds, and I quickly get outpaced in terms of like, oh god, dude, I can't even keep up with all the different woods on the guitars. It's, for me, more an acoustic thing because I grew up in bluegrass world, so I know the vintage acoustic world better, and that's where you find like Billy, Jake Eddy live in those world, like the Preston Thompson recreations of these guitars are basically the fine luthier's attempt at creating what's regarded as the finest era of guitars. For acoustics, I would say, and also electrics too, think about the way a factory works and how, depending on what's going on that year, depending on when their stock shows up, they may or may not have a period of time during which they were really crushing it. Like, everything was really clean. They had really good workers. Sometimes then they have a year where like some of those good workers leave. Some of their parts are ordered from a new supplier and they don't.
Oh my God, you have a 1929. Well, I have the 28. So it's like,
Dude, yeah.
But it's true, right?
So
I've been on these forums where people talk about that. So what goes into that?
So it's a statistics game. To my explanation of it is, you're essentially the reason that the vintage guitar culture and market exists. And there's other factors which I can explain that are more tone related. But I think it's a very well thought out in the way that a betting company would have data to give them their odds, right? Or give odds that people then bet with. I don't know how that works. You can tell I never fucking gambled other than a slot machine. But something about the odds, you're essentially doing odds as a vintage guitar person. And you're saying, well, based on what we know, this was right before, you hear the word pre-war a lot. This is right before the resources and materials, raw goods in the United States were all being repurposed for war stuff. This is when we were using our nicest shit as a society on things that technically don't really matter. Like a guitar doesn't matter for war, but we had the resources. So they're using Brazilian rosewood. They're using all this just incredible stuff. They got the best builders. And so you're essentially placing a really good bet on like, well, out of every D28 ever made, generally 1942 is regarded as the herringbone series, is regarded as some of the finest D28s ever made. If you were to play every single D28 from 1942, I bet you there's some I don't want to say shit guitars in there, but I bet as a player there's
some difference in tone in those, even in that same class of year of these highly wanted or sought out.
And there's going to be different feels, and there's going to be, depending on who played it over the years, or who fixed it over the years, there's going to be different stuff, and all of that are price variables. So people that spend, I saw Jake Eddy selling a 35 D18 or something. It's crazy, beautiful instrument, regarded as probably the holy grail D18 type guitar, and it's I think he listed it for $85,000. And seeing the comments were quite interesting, because you get that full spectrum of like, I literally cannot fathom spending that much money on an instrument, to, hey guys, you don't know what you're talking about. This guitar is worth every penny of that price, which, in my opinion, it is, because there's folks out there that are willing to pay that. Do I think it's a slight bummer that it boxes musicians, especially? I mean, I'm fortunate to have acquired my gear and have it all go back to like funding my career, which is good. But if you're just buying gear, it is sort of an expense that doesn't really go anywhere. It becomes nearly impossible. It becomes impossible. So why would you, if you're not making any money from music, why would you spend $85,000? Either you're a collector and you have the funds, or you can't. So that's a bummer. But I do think it's just how our capitalistic world kind of works, you know?
Well, there's a market supply and demand, right? Yeah. We know that it's going to come and go. So now going back to these foundational things and knowing some of the stuff about the guitars, we haven't even gotten to the electronics yet.
I know, we've just been talking about acoustic.
Yeah, but so when somebody is picking their first, like, obviously the guitar that you learn on more than likely will not be the guitar that you play for the rest of your life, right?
It can be, I know, probably 50-50, I think. The culture that I grew up in was very Guitar Center oriented, at least amongst my generation, I think. I was born in 96, and it seemed like a lot of the standard practice was, hey, you want to learn guitar, age 13 or 14, great. You're not committed yet. We're not going to sink $1,000 into your investment that you may not work out with. So you go to Guitar Center and you buy either the Squire kind of built-in package, and it's got an electric and it's got an amp and a cable, like it's everything you need. But those
all in one nice box,
all in one beautiful box. And it's awesome that those kits were so widely available, because I think it got a lot of people into playing guitar. Sadly, you were asking what you find on different instruments. The thing that probably stopped some of those same kids from keeping up with the guitar is that some of those guitars, it's wood, so it warps and it twists, and you hear the word action with your guitar strings, how high they are off the fretboard. Kids can't really, if you're just learning how to squeeze, you don't want to squeeze a string like a half inch onto your fret. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes there's a sharp and it keeps breaking a string, and you never learn how to change the strings. Lives in the closet for 30 years. That's a story that happens so much. I have found that the people who were not at all like, you have to spend more money on an instrument, but there is something to be said for, even if you're just getting into it, maybe treat yourself to the one step above, like the entry level starting as a kid. Because I think if you buy something for yourself that feels like, gosh, I don't really quite deserve this yet, you will guilt yourself into deserving it, in the sense that you'll put in the work to deserve it and to earn that instrument.
Well, because you've invested so much.
You've invested in it. You kind of like, you're basically putting yourself like gun to head, like, okay, I better learn this or else I just wasted a ton of money.
my daughters just asked for $1,000 guitar, so now I'm going to
Well,
make sure that my daughters are going to go and play that 1,000 guitar. Then no,
yeah.
they haven't. I'm saying
Yeah.
my daughter plays the ukulele, so that makes it a little bit easier to start with on entry price, right?
Yes.
And then see,
yes.
she's also like she just turned 6 years old.
That's so. It's a perfect time to get into it. It's hard, like $1,000 at 6. I don't have a kid yet, but I understand that that's like, you don't really know what they're going to stick with and what they're going to kind of try and give up on. But I do think there is totally something to be said. I had parents that believed in music, and so it was really, really nice for me to have a dad who had nice acoustics growing up, and I was able to play.
Yeah, because you then got to get in and play.
And
yeah, for sure.
So I didn't have the barrier to entry of like having to get an instrument, which it's huge. I fully recognize that was a huge privilege growing up, and I'm so grateful for that. But definitely believing in yourself and your ability to learn something, as intimidating as starting out learning an instrument is, like, treat yourself,
Yeah, but also in this day and age, like, you were able to go to Guitar Center, right? And you were able to go to a physical brick and mortar place and like sit down, pick up probably the similar model, try some stuff. Now we're in 2025 where everyone is living behind
very much
their phone, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so, like, what do you tell folks that are wanting to get into it? Where can they go, or how do they start? Because like now you have to do everything digitally, right? And this will start getting.
Good question. There's a lot of cool stuff, especially in electric guitar world, that is coming from the digital tech, which I'll tell you about later, specifically amplifiers. So that's huge. But the other part, the living in the box aspect, where, let me think. You're able to find, research, know just about anything you want, and you're completely missing the go and play it feel aspect. And I think people have forgotten about that entirely as a result. Maybe people that don't know anything
friends
about
who are phenomenal guitar players, and they can sit with like me and my buddies around a table and be okay. And I'm like, oh, have you ever gone and played like an open mic? No, I'd never do that.
Is it because of stage fright, or are you saying?
I think that he's more of a perfectionist.
Okay, totally. Because that is also just personality types. I think some people are more comfortable with the idea of stage time than others.
But like he plugs in, we just have this shitty amp for bands that come in and play, and usually it's for like stand up or for electric bassists in bands so that they can hear themselves. And so we do like 3-song sessions here in the dungeon, and like they'll come and plug in and play their electric. We're like, damn, buddy, like what
you're awesome. Like you should be up there. Yeah.
Let's go get you to a brewery that's fucking a stone's throw away from any house, right? And like just go do it.
I think my dad's like that, but I don't know if that's a digital thing. There's some folks that just are willing to do stage like I love stage. That's the only time I feel like fully, truly removed from the burdens of being myself. And it is just when I get to be on stage and soloing or playing music with other people and getting in a groove. Like that's life to me. And all the other stuff is the tax that you have to do to be able to have those moments on stage.
Yeah, but Jay, you already gave yourself up. We know that you're only up there listening to
the tone,
making sure that it's
and Kodi,
perfect.
I've said a bunch of stuff now where I'm like, oh gosh, I didn't fully elaborate, but I do think the ideal situation is for me to not have a single thought about how I sound. That's my favorite thing, and that's ideal, and that's most shows are like, if things went well, I didn't have a single thought about how I sounded that evening, because it was just, it feels like an extension of yourself. Like if the guitar is you and you don't think about you're just being yourself. I'm not thinking about my sound, I'm just doing things. If I'm thinking about it, that means I've already failed, because I'm caught up in me. I'm caught up in like me being different from the rest of the consciousness that we all share, So I've already lost the mission as soon as I'm on stage thinking about tone, which is why I make it my mission to off stage. I want to get all my tone like just perfect. So I don't have.
And so let's go back to this electronics, and then we can get to the point, and then I have a million questions.
Oh, dude, there's so
many about Jerry. All right, so you talked about like kits and things like that, but you already said that the most important thing is the electronics, maybe not the body or everything.
I think on an electric guitar, totally.
Yes.
I think the electronics.
And this is where we're going to focus on, because yes, I love Jerry Garcia and JGB and his bluegrass stuff.
I love it.
But The bread and butter
That tone.
was the electric, yeah, that tone that we all know and love is from the electric guitar. So now for an electric guitar player, you're talking about the electronics. So that can include like what's on your board, right? What are your pedals?
Yep.
What are your pickups? What do you have? And there it is. For people that don't and have listened this long, go to Jerry Tone Store, and that's the guitar that you play a lot of these. Hey, do you want to hear this with a
What would
Jerry
Jerry have sounded like on this thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So let's talk about some of those electronics and what people should be focusing on to get towards that Jerry's tone.
dude, awesome. Yes, I forgot that we're talking about Jerry tone here. There's so much stuff going on. Pickups are so important, and I would say when paired with the quote-unquote special thing that Jerry used in his guitars that was made them really different from other guitars, pickups and the buffer. And the role of a buffer, as simple as I can describe it, is it as simply as I can describe it, is it protects the signal on the way from the guitar to the amplifier. And on normal electric guitars, that signal is very fragile. It's very subject to interference from radio stations. You know, we have a lot of invisible forces that we can't see out there. That cable is one long antenna for extra noise to get in. So sometimes, like guitar players, I know it's happened to me at gigs, and one of the reasons I got so into this, you turn down your volume knob a little bit at a gig, and all of a sudden you hear country music radio coming through your amplifier. And you're like, well, that's not right. So I had that happen to me at a gig in Boston, and I was like, wow, country. Like, not what I was expecting at a Boston gig.
It found you, Jay.
It found me.
Found you.
But then also, pretty cool demonstration to be like, oh yeah, so Jerry was onto something. He, as soon as this signal, we were talking about signal flow earlier, as soon as this very fragile signal leaves the pickups, he put a protection device there to basically be like, hey, now this signal, when it comes here, it goes to your pedals, goes to your amp, it's going to stay the same.
It's forcing the flow down to that amplifier.
The flow would be happening regardless, but the way he did it, it basically made the flow, it mathematically changes the flow so that it doesn't lose the high end. It's opposite the fundamental ethos of somebody like Jimi Hendrix, who would turn all the amp stuff up, which is unbelievably cool tones. It's so rock and roll. I'm not dissing it, but Jerry had a very scientifically opposite approach where he preserved all of the signal as much as he possibly could. It stems from like Owsley Stanley, the way he saw sound and wanted to hear the perfect live sound representation. Jerry was preserving every possible bit of frequency and then choosing to roll it off or choosing to turn it down when he needed. But Hendrix had this coily cable, very high capacitance. It shifts the resonant peak of the pickups lower, I think, and it gives you this chunky thing that like Jerry's, it's not that rock and roll thing. So pickups are really important. The buffer is the biggest difference that Jerry had on his guitars. And you need a 9-volt battery to have buffer operational on your guitars. And it's just a little chip. My friend Mike Wald makes them and I sell them. And this is my shameless plug, I guess. You can get your buffers at Jerry Tone Store. And yeah, man, it's magic. I put a buffer in my guitar, and not that it was fully Jerry from that second on, but it was like, I finally get what's happening. Like that was the
So that made the biggest impact in the tone, at least per se. And then you had to fine tune it.
There's a lot of other stuff. There's speakers.
Did you have to modify the body of the guitar to put in?
And that is kind of funny that you asked that, because that's sort of where I found myself doing business that I did not expect to be doing. Yes, a lot of modifications. So as you can see, a normal guitar would have, maybe sometimes it'll have what we call a swimming pool route, where there's enough room, it's fully routed where you could put whatever pickups you want in. But a lot of Strats are just cut out, and a cutout. So you can't put what you want in there unless you have the exact shape that fits it. Swimming pool route was the first thing that I learned how to do, so I could put different pickups in my guitar. It's just like a little swimming pool in there. This is a pretty standard cavity size that you might see. But then in addition, I had Anthony make me a third cavity in the back for battery, 2 buffers, and I put those things back here. So it's not an extremely accessible price wise. I think it is, if you're willing to spend a couple $100 on a guitar mod. It's not crazy, but it is not accessible for folks who don't want to work with power tools, don't want to mod their instruments. It's a weird, yeah. Sorry.
And no, it's not.
I can see questions on your face, maybe.
Yes, because I've worked with a company that built their own guitar pedals, and so I was out because they had one that they sold on side that would go on a board, or they had another version that they would actually mod into the guitar.
Cool.
But for me, as a simpleton again, you were just talking about the difference of like it coming from one piece of wood, right? And not having to reverberate through some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So like building this pool or building these areas to add some of these electronics, does that then start to shift some of the tone as well? Do you have to be careful about placement or how big you're making things or what's going on?
Really, really great question. And some people would say yes. I find that on a neck through instrument, perhaps, yes, maybe. On a set neck instrument, maybe, perhaps it might matter. On a bolt-on neck instrument, dude, the bulk of that sustain loss is going to happen where the neck joins the body. It might think. I say that very confidently, and I just realized I don't actually have any science.
Don't know if that's the truth.
But I'm pretty sure that's
Get him in the comments,
yeah,
boys.
let me know.
Get him in the comments.
No, but I'm pretty sure that between the bridge contacting the body is going to have a big effect too, but that it's a weak point in the connection. On Strats, again, I think I started when you asked me that question first. I think it matters so little the wood material is, other than how the guitar feels on a Strat. With the bolt-on, the energy's getting lost there. So I carve quite a big cavity. I do take the wood out. I have yet to have anybody say, like, this has changed the sustain for the worse. Another thing that I do that I think makes up for any loss of sustain because I'm taking wood out is I hardtail the bridge. So Strats come with the whammy bar, the tremolo system. In order to put the battery in, I take a spring out, put the battery in that system area, and then I put a block of wood wedged really nicely custom cut between the wood of the body and that tremolo bridge. And so now all of a sudden you have another 4 inches of surface area, 4 square, probably 6 square inches of surface area front and back that's now making contact with the entirety of the bridge. So if I did take any wood out that made up for that took away some of the sustain, in theory, I will have absolutely made up for it on a Strat by blocking that tremolo bridge and making it come into contact with the body that much more. Huge rant. Sorry. Didn't know.
No. That's. But dude, I promise you, the people that are caught this far,
okay,
this is what they want to know.
If
right?
you're still here, then hopefully,
yes. But now, not hopefully. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into the stuff that I can then double back for all my heads to understand.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is talking about Jerry and his tone and your journey. Obviously, you don't know shit about guitars, so
exactly.
Your father, the influence, this all starts to make sense, right? So now you're starting to push yourself. You are your own musician. I know a little bit of the backstory, right? I know that you started on TikTok, and it started in, what was it, 3, maybe 4 years ago?
What is about? Even? Yeah, 3.5 sounds about right. Something like that.
So it's just at the end of COVID. Life is starting to come back to normal.
22. April 22.
And now you're putting out these clips where, Jesus, is that Jerry reincarnated? Like, what's going on here? So how did we get to that point, Jay?
Oh my God, man. Well, I can tell this story. So I'm doing my Jerry tone journey. So I call it post-college, my tone journey. It's just Jerry's sound. I always connected with it so much. Loved the Dead. Never thought that, like, the goal was not to be in a Grateful Dead cover band. But the goal, I think, has always been similar to what I see a lot of artists out there doing it right now. And it's just playing to that spirit, largely, the spirit of improvisational music. I happen to have, it feels like I've had a 10-year detour on the tone stuff. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I forget I have to make music too. I just love performing. So if I could play gigs the rest of my life and work on guitars, I'm a real happy man. And I kind of don't get bogged down in some of the artist stuff that I maybe wish I worked on more. it's
but you've at least been more cognizant of it recently, right? And you've been posting your shows and getting out to your
try to, yeah,
gigs.
you're seeing it. Cool.
And
Okay.
yeah,
That's good, man.
it's
Yeah.
not just more of what we've already come to know and love,
I'm
right? Like
trying to be,
you're starting to spread out on your path,
yes.
but it's fun because you like got this opportunity to chat because you got so into something that so many people love, but we didn't know anything about.
And it's so cool to see, like, I think for a while I was getting a little scared with the, like, have I pigeonholed myself as a, I don't want to use the word artist, but if I do have an artistic career at some point, have I pigeonholed myself by being so focused on this Jerry stuff? Like, I got the comments early on. I think I put my word filters in so it doesn't happen as much anymore. But you're just using Jerry's name to make a name for yourself stuff. And I hate that because I didn't ever come across it for that reason. It was a genuine reflection of my love for his sound.
Just
But
another musician sucking the
yeah,
teeth of the
sucking the
Grateful
teeth.
Dead.
But I like Billy. I respect and love and think it is the coolest thing that Billy stopped playing Grateful Dead songs. All
No,
the
fucking
same.
stop right there. No,
Oh,
do not say
I know.
no.
Hey,
No,
Kodi, let me
no.
defend it. Let me defend it. Let me
Okay,
defend
fine,
it.
fine. I'm gonna.
Because I respect him, because all the same people from my perspective, I'm not in the thick of the scene, but from my perspective, the same people still came to the shows. He was able to build his audience, and I think he ended up by doing that building a overall way stronger fusion between the worlds than there perhaps would have been if he had just kept doing it. So I just love, I
You
think
are
that was really
not
cool.
wrong, right? And he
See it?
even said, I think it was like GQ or Vogue or one of
Didn't
the
Bobby
magazines
ask him to or something?
that were surprised. Well, that's just the
That's
rumor.
the
But
rumor. Okay.
he said I wanted to start my own Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, and he
I
did.
want my own scene, and he has very successfully done that.
So I
Now,
share
going
in
back,
that dream, you know?
yeah, but stop, because you guys, like, I swear to God, if you stop playing Jerry Tone shit, I'm gonna
Well,
come
I
after you
can't.
too.
Oh no! And so that's the thing, is it's baked into my career identity in a way where I can't remove myself from that, and I don't have any desire to. I love it. I always am concerned that people see me and I'm concerned when people
Like,
have a
that's all that you are.
grifter reaction or think that I'm trying to be a Jerry Garcia. Dude, not trying to be I want to have a healthy, I want to have a healthy and balanced life, and I think Jerry had a life that he had to give way too much of himself to sustain it. And so I
Well,
think
and you're adding your own personality and your own flavor to it by doing some of these crossovers, right?
try
And
true,
things
yeah,
like
or
this.
at least see who it resonates with out there. And then when it's time to, I'm not a good songwriter yet. I wish I were. I can write guitar parts, but I really get in my head. For years now, I've been like, I'll come back and start writing songs again when I have something to say. And I still sit down and I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm there yet with something to say. So in the meantime, I love sounds. I'm searching for sounds, and I just want to like enable guitar players and the greater community of people that are interested in sound to practice it and see what's up and find their own shit. Like, I just
Well,
love
and to also chase it, right? Because
Chase it.
you found a tone that you went and chased. And it's not that you've perfected it, because every musician knows,
They all have
as you
their
guys
own.
are perfectionists, you're gonna chase something. You're gonna make it your own.
Yeah.
You're gonna find a different way to do things, right?
Yeah.
But so you posted this video on TikTok in 2022. You get hundreds of thousands of views on it, and there's got to be like this oh shit moment of like, wow, okay, like everybody has heard of or seen a Grateful Dead cover band, right?
Yeah.
But not many people have come and heard a guitar lick like what you were playing coming from not the man himself, right?
Very interesting. Yeah, I never even thought. It's so funny because you're asking me these questions and I'm like, wow, that does sound pretty well planned and thought out. And none of it was well planned and thought out. It was me. I've always wanted an LLC. Every tax season would come around, I'd go, God, man, I gotta get LLC so I can have a business. I don't know. I majored in entrepreneurship in school and minored in music technology, which is like pretty weird combo of stuff. But I always wanted to have a business of some sort because
Yeah, but look at where you at years later.
And
It
so-
matches exactly what
so
you were doing.
I finally, in 2022, COVID's happened, and I was like, fuck, dude, if I don't have an LLC by next tax season, I'm going to actually be really sad. I need to do it. And I looked it up, and I finally...
These amps aren't going to pay for
Well,
themselves.
I didn't have the amp collection, too. I was playing in a band at the time and working AV, and then eventually for like a consumer tech music company, and not really enjoy, like, God, dude, I just want to either play music all the time or not do corporate stuff as best I can. And so I think without knowing it, I began building my rescue plan. I didn't know that yet. So I wanted to advertise my local guitar services. This is February 2022. I made jferris.com. And then right after that, my buddy Waldo, who has sold his buffers on and off to folks, I think he kind of got tired of like the dealing with the actual hassle of selling and shipping stuff. And he said, "Hey man, would you want to sell my buffers?" And I said, I just started my website. I've been waiting for you to ask. That would be awesome. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, my whole 6-year journey of finding the gear and finding this dude in Wyoming and this dude in Connecticut and this dude and waiting 6 months here and here. What if I had a store that brought all those builders together or brought the most common things that people needed to have a Jerry guitar setup so that they could do their journey in 6 months as opposed to 4 fucking years of wasting your time and COVID brain Facebook messaging being like, hey, does the color of Milk Crate have a difference on your tone? Obviously a joke experiment, but we were playing with stupid shit like that. So that's the whole thing. I changed Jerry Tone Store. I bought that domain, and then I had it transfer over to my jferris.com website. Eventually, I make that TikTok video, the rigs. It was just me flipping switches. Least amount of thought I've ever put into a video, and it was 250,000 views. And I was like, oh, cool. I have an audience now. I've been waiting for this. And so that's where that started. And then the alternate universe stuff started because I didn't want to be the guy who just posted Jerry licks. And I love Jerry Garcia's playing. I love it so much, and I love the Grateful Dead. But again, I never set out to be a Jerry clone. And then what I found from being on the internet and posting in the forums is that fans have pretty high expectations. And so if you don't hit it in a way that they can see that you've done your homework, then you shouldn't be posting. And so I have this kind of scary obsession. You said earlier, you're like, wow, so you wanted to understand all of the layers. I have this sickening thing where if I don't feel I understand something, I can't properly, adequately judge it. So I need to have all the context clues.
Well, and you were talking about so many things, right? The hand placement, the guitar pick, the strings, the pickup,
so I want
all this.
And I want to know. And then what ended up happening, especially over the last few years, is as I'm buying this gear and getting closer from the material goods perspective, which that's not as fun to share because it's kind of like, hey, look at what I bought. I'm not trying to just do that. So this background, I look at it and I get sick sometimes because I'm like, oh, it's not about like collecting stuff. That's not why I started. During the time that I'm posting these videos and buying gear and getting closer to the full Jerry rig, my technique as a guitar player is changing. And it was so cool because I'm playing in a band at the time, doing 2 to 3 shows a week on average, probably 2 shows a week on average. And so every time I get a new thing in my rig, I'm able to take it out and give myself like a real beta test of, oh, did that get me closer or not? And I'm sharing the videos in the meantime. And then I found, oh, wow, like this lick almost unlocks itself. I don't listen to Jerry's guitar playing with the transcription idea that often. Like I don't sit and copy the licks note for note hardly ever. I've done it with a couple songs, and I don't say that with pride or shame, you know.
But you also have such an understanding because then you're able to take that interpretation of that tone and apply them to different genres, right?
I think it's cool, man. It's just like it's my practice.
You're not the only one that thinks it's cool. That's exactly why we fucking have you here, Jay.
Well, thanks, man.
It's awesome, but what I want to know is because like Jerry's tone evolved, right? And it evolved over years and different albums and
yes,
different touring dates and different life circumstances, right?
Yeah,
so,
totally.
So for me, it would be fun to chat with you about what you feel like that evolution was, and then for us that may not know, like what you think, whether it was gear or what he did to his pickups or what happened to start evolving that, other than just going from like, okay, because I will tell you this right now, as a Deadhead, archive.org, it was probably 2001, and I was literally downloading every single Dark Star from 1969.
That's so awesome.
And it was my jam. I loved it. You talked about like jamming out, like Dark Star was it for me. but I could hear so many different things even in that singular year, and then going on from there to years like 72, right? And like, okay, now I can hear the difference in this is what's going on. And then you start hearing them in the 80s and you're like, wait, that sounds like a
Whoa.
whole different fucking
Yeah.
song, right? Like,
This is a new animal,
yeah,
dude.
so let's talk a little bit of that evolution of tone.
Oh gosh. Okay. It's so exciting, man. I love these questions. And also it's hard because we do get into the realm of me. I'm not trying to speak for dead people. Jerry had his opinion. This is just based on like what I've read and sort of what I've surmised based on all of the shit that I've read Jerry talk about. You kind of get a sense of like, okay, I think he had this opinion. I think he was searching for this.
You
So,
are being very
forgive me.
protective. Fuck the haters. You
Yeah,
can
all
come
right.
after me for
No,
it.
dude.
Listen, you have so much knowledge, and that's why. And it sucks because the internet's a terrible place. And
You just got to be careful with how you
and this
present it.
happens because people will come after you for those things, which is wild. Which is wild to me.
It's part of it. I deal better with it nowadays because I'm realizing like, oh, you know what? We only have the binary on the internet, and so you only get the extremes. And I think that I'm getting more at peace with that a little bit.
Go touch
you know?
some fucking
Yeah.
grass.
Go,
Okay,
dude,
like
go touch a guitar,
outside.
man. Play a guitar. So anyway, Jerry's tone, you said it so well. Like you can hear it evolve within a year, but then you also hear it evolve within the career. But then there is also that part where I think this is the coolest part where it doesn't fucking change at all because it's Jerry the whole time. And
Yeah.
so you can hear in the Dark Star from 69, no matter what version, and you hear in the So Many Roads from 95, you're like, oh, those are Jerry's fingers. The only difference is 30. What is it? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
God, that's my bad math skills. Jesus
Yes.
Christ. 26 years.
26 years.
Oh, kill me. We'll have to take, you could leave that in, but that's all right. So, yeah, 26 years of Jerry's fingers aging. And so then, yeah, you said as things happen to his body, I don't know if he's struggling with arthritis at that point, but you can hear certain arthritic tendencies or whatever. I had an injury in my left hand and I was having to play through it it was a tendon had popped, play through it for a year. And I was actually surprised by some of the things that I gravitated to doing in an attempt to like not use my muscles the same way. I was like, oh, that sounds kind of remarkably like when Jerry would like trip over this. Like it was so weird.
It's so funny because I was at the Dead & Co show at the Sphere on August 7th when
John Mayer's finger injury.
Finger was fucking yes,
and I was like, more like
and I was like, oh my god, he sounds so much better with a fucked up finger. Like somebody needs to cut that finger off so that this is just how he sounds.
The cool thing about that, I think it's genuinely, and I think he even posted something. I don't know if he said it exactly, but it's like it forced him to. He literally couldn't use muscle memory.
He had to relearn how to do it.
And so there's some beautiful thing.
Man, he fucking ripped it,
dude.
I had seen so many, and people give Dead and slow shit, but yeah, sorry. Back to Jerry. Fuck John. He's cute, but no.
But I'm fascinated by the injuries, and Pat Martino, I think, was revered by Jerry, and he's one of my favorite guitar players. He straight up had to learn how to master his instrument twice because he had an amnesia sort of stroke thing that literally forgot how to play. And so Jerry has that story too. He had to learn how to play again.
After his addiction and all that shit that happened. And so all those medical issues.
The coma, man, that would take your muscle memory away, I imagine. I'm sure you get some of it back quicker than the average person if you did play for that long. So I don't know. Jerry's ethos. I love talking about the ethos word because he clearly had this sound that he was searching for from the get-go. He clearly was able to access it from the get-go in some ways, but I think he saw certain gear as being limiting factor for him. So you see this pattern emerge as he would experiment with stuff. He'd experiment, play a tour, change something, play the next tour, change something, and they were always changing things, it seems, in tandem. So if they changed one variable, they would change the other variable to match it as close to the last iteration as possible. And you get this really cool evolution that is basically, if you adjust for high-end hearing loss, which is a very real thing to maybe adjust for, I think Jerry found his sound in 87 and 89. And I think the later era of experimentation is sort of how could I push this sound to a different way using the new tech that's out there? But I really think you look at 89 Jerry and like that's pretty much the sound. The tech stuff in 93 comes in and shifts, but I think they're playing around with things. They're tinkering by then. But it's really like 69 to 89. It took him about 20 years to what I feel get to that perfect sort of pinnacle tone-wise stuff. And I think they shifted. I think the explanation for why the tone changes in the 90s on a macro level is because they were having reliability issues with some of this. Like, it's a lot of stuff to keep after and look after. This amplifier, the reason I do this stuff, I forgot to tell you that I quit my corporate job midway through Jerry Tone store building, and I'm realizing like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I have to change my entire career and learn like really, really how to solder. So I part-time job for an amp company, all because I bought this Macintosh amplifier and then I had to learn how to fix it, and it was going to be like $2,000 to fix, or I could just figure it out myself. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes into it and a lot of distraction, and sadly, like, I wish I could play guitar more, but I have to fix a lot of gear, and that takes up my hands.
For sure. And the amplifier, you said, plays the biggest role. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I think so. Yeah.
As Jerry found his sound, and you're saying like this evolution of time for 20 years from 69 to 87 to 89, right?
Yeah.
But at that point, you feel like he's found his gel, he's found his rig. What was the amp setup like that for him at the time?
It's all, the cool part is it's really an extension of what he started on to some degree. The SG being the 69 guitar, that is a little bit of a strange exception, but it's not that far out. Like, that's sort of his, I'm speaking a little out of turn here, but if we're looking at it in like big major blocks and not like all of the random shit that he played every micro show, because he changed around stuff, but big macro blocks, he was pretty focused on like, okay, I tried out Gibson stuff, too bendy for me, too sensitive. Go to Fender with Alligator. Really likes the Fender feel, likes that scale length. Experiments a little bit from the Fender stuff with Wolf, but it's very rooted in Fender construction sort of and sound. Then experiments with Travis Bean. It seems like he almost stays that way, and then Wolf comes back with the new tech that they picked up from the Travis Bean. Turns out he likes the combo of the Fendery sort of Wolf thing with the Travis Bean tech. Now we're here. Now he's playing.
They're Frankensteining that.
They're Frankenstein. So everything that he gets, you can see these little bits and pieces of like, oh, well, he liked this thing this month. That stays. He likes this thing this month. That stays. And then that becomes his 89 rig, his 95 rig, even eventually. It's like the thing.
But he's also swapping out guitars during different songs.
Yeah, but
right?
not really. Not as much as you'd think. I think we get a pretty warped sense of how much he's changing
seeing those clips.
No, because we see, at least as a modern concert goer, think about that. It's fun for the guitarists that have a budget to tour nationally. You have a guitar tech. Billy and Toby are an exception. They're nerds. But like, I think a lot of people like to swap guitars. John Mayer solo tour, he's got a huge guitar. He has different guitars coming out all the time. Jerry was kind of like he played them in big chunks, and then he'd swap if there was an issue. Or if something's not working right. So yes, you've seen the clips of like, I love those clips because it's like, look, Jerry's changing guitars. There must have been something wrong.
Yes, something happened.
It's like Tylenol pregnancy ass is like, I want to know all those details.
You're like, hold on, let me zoom in.
Sorry, he always switches. Actually, that's position 2 and 4, and you can see that the phase reversal. Wow, how interesting. So
then were you putting all this stuff? You said it was a spreadsheet, or were you putting into a notebook?
Well, that's just my kind of stuff. So I'm not
That was you for testing you, but also to finding Jerry's tone, right?
That's all Waldo, man. Like, I owe it to Waldo to having that. He has the kind of brain that he can watch a YouTube video for 30 minutes, watch the loser solo, and go right there. And then he pauses, and then he zooms in, and through the grain, he can tell that Jerry's hand is doing this. If you were doing this, what would you be reaching for? Well, he has the picture a tiger right next to it, he's reaching for what happens to be the middle pickup switch. So we know that Jerry
He's
has now
slightly changing
reached
the middle pickup.
that kind of stuff. I don't have the tolerance to get that nerdy with it. So I've relied
So
on
Waldo's
Waldo.
really softballing you these things, and then you're putting them into practice.
And then I also had a knack for I like social media. I grew up in rural Tennessee where it's like if you wanted to connect with people, you're either playing bluegrass music or like on the internet. And so I'm an internet baby. I'm not a millennial. I'm not Gen Z, like in between. And that sort of led me to like, dude, Waldo, like we're friends. He doesn't like sharing stuff in the way that I like sharing stuff. And so I'm able to kind of synthesize his information into what I can do a singular focus of like, hey, here's some general pointers. Go to his site sometime and really check out like the work he's put into it. It is unbelievable. Truly.
What is it again?
Waldotronics.com. And he has, if you're wanting to know any of the devilish details, he's got just about every detail you could ever want to know, down to guitar string height action. He got to go and measure Jerry guitars before anybody had really gotten to do that in the early 2000s and the late 2010s. So it's cool stuff.
That's super cool.
Yeah, man.
And so then you finally get this, you start growing, you have this social media, you're now turning this into work, right?
It's been amazing, man. Yeah. It's my Thursday through Sunday. When I'm not playing gigs, I'm essentially working. I try to remember to like still keep the creativity fresh and still find time to experiment for myself, which leads to a lot of guilt that like I'm not working on his instrument. I probably should be. But I have these beautiful, beautiful projects that people trust me with, and it means the world. And like my customers, I try to not advertise that I do it with the sense that if you've taken the time to find me and you've been patient enough to deal with the fact that I haven't responded to my emails in 3 weeks, chances are, and you still want a guitar, chances are you're going to be a really cool customer and you're going to be the kind of person that like I want to work on something for. I try not, you can get caught up in capitalism real quick, and I'm not anti that, but I am kind of anti doing this strictly to make money. Like I'm doing this as an extension of I really, really love it. I like working on projects for myself, but I can't afford to build myself a guitar every week. So it kind of gives me it's the methadone for my addiction.
It feeds the beast for sure. Yeah. But it's also not the driving factor to why you're doing some of these things.
It is purely, it's basically like, this is I was playing in a band. I quit my band last year to essentially spend time figuring out what my soul needs to do as an artist. And in the meantime, this has been the saving grace of like, hey man, I'm happy to mod people's guitars while I wait to see what I'm up to musically, besides just doing my local. I'm really having a blast playing bluegrass dead night at a local brewery and inviting new musicians from Berkeley and other places to come join me and play, basically thanks to people like Billy building those bridges across the two worlds. I'm having a grand old time as a local musician up here in Massachusetts.
That's awesome. So plug where people can follow you, the website where they can find you, and then I have one last thing to close this bad boy out.
JerryToneStore.com is the place if you want to read. I mean, you don't need to read about it at this point because you heard the podcast, but FAQ, I have my guitar schematics and stuff. I'm essentially trying to, without speaking for dead people, I am trying to take hey, what would Jerry be doing with today's tech and his sound, and knowing what we know about what he liked, where might he have gone? And so that's sort of where my head's at on a macro level. And then waldotronics.com, you can find really cool nerdy information, all the breakdowns that you want, and get a buffer for your guitar.
Buffers.
Get your buffers, man. And come see a show if you're in Massachusetts, local central Mass area. I'm playing a lot of places around here and working on your instruments in the meantime. So shoot me an email if you want to get in touch.
You got to support the guys. And so for me, I am a huge Help Slip Frank guy.
Cool.
So I need to know for you, what's your favorite song and what's the favorite version that you've heard it from for Jerry?
Okay. Oh gosh, I wasn't ready. But
I know, that's why I don't ask people this, because now it's going to have to come from you. And you're going to come back and go, shit, I forgot about this one.
It changes.
Don't give me multiple answers,
No,
Jay.
I'm not going to give you multiple answers. Hang on. This is what I wanted to do, was pick a JGB tune, but I'm not going to do that. but I like his tone in JGB overall more. I will say, just there's something about it. His guitar seems happier. I don't know how to describe it.
I feel like he seems more loose, but
That's
don't
what it is. I'm not
Stop.
buckling out. Sorry. I just had to preface it with that because I wanted to choose JGB. You know what it would be? It would be, and now that I say that, it's him playing Tangled Up in Blue with Jerry Garcia band in probably circa 82 or the real coked up versions. What's the real There is a jangle.
The sped up one. Yeah, for sure.
And if I'm sorry, I'm not giving you two answers. If not that, it would be, yeah, there's an 89 Grateful Dead performance. Is it the RFK 89? Just every single song, but if I have to pick a tune, I'll pick Ramble on Rose. I'll pick Ramble on Rose from RFK 89 if that in fact happened, which I think it did.
Sure.
Yeah, there you go, Kodi.
And that's why I do this. I love to keep people on their toes. Jay, I cannot thank you enough, buddy. I could have sat here and talked to you for 3 hours.
No, same, right? Man. I'm sorry it's past the time. I could have stayed longer, but I'm gonna go head out and go out to dinner with my fiance. I turned 29 today, so I'm going.
Oh, it's your birthday,
yeah,
buddy?
Dude, this is how I wanted to spend it, man. Thank you.
Man,
it's awesome.
That Jay, God damn. Well, happy birthday to Jay.
You gave me a birthday gift.
And Billy Strings. You guys are both phenomenal guitar players. You're huge for our scene. I can't thank you enough. Now I feel like the biggest jackass.
I didn't want to tell you, but I wanted to mention it because I knew that me and Billy are birthday buddies, which I think is real fun. So
that's awesome.
Fun scene.
Well, Jay, buddy, thank you so much. This won't be the last you hear from me.
I can't wait to chat more, and I'm real glad we finally got to connect. Thank you.
For sure. And for all of you out there, go follow this man. And tell me what your favorite Dead song is, and don't cop out with the Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, don't cop out. Cheers, man.